that if you've ever had a problem with root rot or are wondering how to properly clean your indoor growing equipment, that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. If you get it right, things tend to go pretty well. If you get it wrong, things are pretty much guaranteed to not go well. So this is kind of an important episode, even though it's not a lot of information. So stick around. I'll tell you all about my tragedies and my victories in the world of keeping indoor growing equipment clean, functional, and doing what it's supposed to do. All right, so if that's your thing, don't forget to hit on that subscribe button and you'll get more notifications for videos just like this. And be sure to stick around because there's more good stuff to come. Okay, so what I want to tell you first is that this is probably, and I'm not understating this. Whoops. That's the first rule, is turn off the audio when you're the guy talking. Okay. First thing I want to tell you is it's probably the most important thing, because what happens with, well, when you're growing outdoors, everything balances itself. If you get imbalances in a plant, nature tends to take care of it itself right away. There's no kind of like deep response. There's shallow responses happening all the time. It's an equilibrium that's happening in nature. When you're growing indoors, however, what can happen is you could have everything going fantastically, everything's going perfectly, and then you, for whatever reason, you have a contamination, and that contamination, let's say it starts in your nutrient chamber, your nutrient tank, then in a matter of a couple of water cycles, a couple of feeding cycles, you've just spread that infection through the entire system. So, and you know, these systems tend to be built out like a spider web kind of thing. Like you have a centralized system, and then you have a whole bunch of plants, like a spread of plants working off of one set of timers, one nutrient tank, and so forth. So when something happens, it tends to be catastrophic. This is why it's so important to keep it really clean. So the first thing I can tell you is you want to keep your hands clean when you're working with this equipment. Whether it's you can't see that, whether it's one of these gardens like you see behind me here, or whether it's the 5-gallon buckets you put your nutrient solution in, or whether we're talking about the tools that you use to do your trimming, your cutting, those need to be kept clean. You need to also, another thing, if you're working with a system where you're working with tubing of any kind, like the 1/4-inch tubing or 3/8-inch tubing, even after you've cleaned the entire system, a lot of times what people forget to do is they need to clean the tubes as well. You need to soak them and then ream them out. I tell people to ream them out with either a coat hanger, or you can get actual cleaners to do that. But or just use fresh tubing. I mean, you can do that too. But I tell people that's where things like to hide is the places where you typically will forget to clean. Also, another thing to keep in mind with this equipment is that anytime you have a fitting, a quick fitting for 1/4-inch tubing. Of course, anytime I'm talking about this, I don't have it right in front of me, do I? I have about 1 billion of them about 5 feet away, but I have to get totally unhooked to get them. Anyway, anytime you're working with those types of fittings, anywhere that they touch water, obviously there are going to be threads and screw threads and so forth on these fittings, and places for bacteria to hide, places for just dirt to any kind of dirt to hide. It can also be a place for algae to grow. That's another thing I want to mention while we're talking about cleanliness. It's not directly related because it's algae, not dirt. But when you're working with indoor grow equipment and artificial light, well, actually, this applies to outdoors as well. You absolutely have to keep in mind that everything needs to be kept light proof, meaning the nutrient solution tank needs to be kept light proof so that you don't get a buildup of algae and you don't get unfavorable conditions inside of that container. The same thing is true of your root chamber where you're spraying the roots with the nutrient solution. That chamber interior needs to stay clean. So you have to start with it clean. And one of the things that I always recommend is that you just make hydrogen peroxide your best friend, because this hydrogen peroxide is kind of the go-to for safe cleaning. safe cleaning of hydroponic equipment, aeroponic equipment, any kind of grow equipment where both you and the future food have to come in contact with a cleaning agent. It's got to be hydrogen peroxide. Never use anything stronger. Don't do it. Please don't use bleach. Please don't use anything like that. Just good old-fashioned cheap hydrogen peroxide from the drugstore, from Amazon, whatever. 3% is what you want as the standard. It says right there in the label, 3%. Right there. That's the stuff that you want. And just pick up a whole bunch of this. You can even buy this by the case. That's what we do here. We buy this by I think there's 6 of them in a case, either 6 or 8 in a case. I think there's 6 in a case, 6 of these in a case. And it's very inexpensive. Good stuff. And I'll tell you how I use it in a second, as soon as I can speak again. All right. Oh, there's so much dust down here. I was just cleaning before I went on the air tonight, and yeah, there's dust everywhere here. I'm like choking on it right now. Okay, so first thing I want to tell you about sponges, and these are the typical sponges that you use in the kitchen. They have the 2 sides on them, the green side, the yellow side. And the reason that this is important, the reason I'm bringing this up at all, because, I mean, of course you're going to use a sponge, right? I mean, I figure everybody will use a sponge. But first thing is, God only knows what they put on these to keep them, you know, fresh and sort of damp when they're in the package. But go ahead and rinse this out really well in some cold water before you ever even think about using it. Because I don't know what's on here, but on most sponges, I feel that there's some sort of waxy. There's something on the sponge when you receive it and you take it out of the package. I'm sure it's harmless. I'm sure it's no big deal, but I know it causes a little bit of sudsing when you first get it and you first put water on it. There's a little bit of sudsing going on, so there's something on here. So I just say go ahead and rinse that out really well, wring it a few times, and then you're at least safe on the yellow side. Now, what I'm going to say is stay away from the green side. Stay away from the green side. Here's why. A lot of the equipment that we use, of course, is made of plastics. Now, they're very good, high-quality plastics. Some of them even have antibacterial agents worked into them. Silver is sometimes used, and they impregnate the plastic with silver. The silver kills the bacteria, and it stays inside the silver permanently. So, but here's the thing. It's made in such a way that it needs to stay in its original form to be effective, which means that if you start scraping it away with this green pad, because this is basically sandpaper, just think of that as sandpaper. That's what that is, that green side. That will effectively do 2 bad things. The first is if it has any kind of like coating that's supposed to be protective, and I don't know what your equipment's made of, but a lot of equipment has coatings on it to serve as the antibacterial coatings and so forth. It'll rub that right off. This green thing is used to, like, you can use this to remove paint. You can use it to remove grunge off your pots and pans, obviously, but it's also used for industrial purposes, like removing paint with solvents. You use it as a scraper on airplanes, cleaning the outside of airplanes. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with this, but you want to keep it away from plastic because plastic is very soft. That's a problem. And what it'll do is it'll create grooves in the plastic, and it'll create scratches. And anywhere that you have scratches in the plastic where it comes in contact then with nutrient solution or water, it's going to be a place where bacteria can hide and grow, and we're trying to avoid that. So you want to keep any kind of plastic materials that you work with, including all tubing and all fittings and tools and so forth, as smooth and clean as possible. You don't want to gouge them. You don't want to abrade them with anything like this, or do anything that would disturb their natural finish. So that's what I'm going to tell you about that. So go ahead and use the sponge all you want. Rinse it out first. Don't use the green side. Only use the soft, squishy side. All right, so let me show you what happens real quick. I'm anxious to show you this because it's really gruesome and it's dramatic, and you're going to love this. Okay, so I got a real nasty case of root rot going on right over here. I've got some red Reuben basil, which once upon a time, not long ago, about 3 weeks ago, was beautiful. In fact, I was going to show it on camera and be all proud of it and show it off. But I'm showing off the darker side of red Reuben basil tonight. It's a dark side. It's very, very dark. But yeah, what can happen happens very quickly. In fact, this guy here. Now, to be fair, I didn't aggressively treat it. I put a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in there at first when I first saw it, but I decided pretty quickly maybe I should just treat some of these cases as like something to show on camera, like what can happen. So then I just decided to stop treating it. So what we have here is a more or less untreated case of root rot, which I'm going to show you now. It's gruesome. Okay, so tell the kids to go to bed. All right, so let's take a look at this. All right. Get my hand around here. This is, all right, you ready for this? Oh my God. Ah, happy Halloween. Oh my God. All right, I'm trying not to smell it. I'm kind of holding my breath over here, but yeah, this is the kind of ugliness you can expect if you do not keep things perfectly clean. Now, as you can see, not everybody was equally affected. Some of these guys are more or less still, well, I wouldn't call them healthy, but they're healthier. And then we've got some that are clearly dead. And that's just rot. That's just roots that are rotting right now. So that's literally what happens. That's the end. This is like during the disease process. Pythium root rot is what it's called. It's caused by something called Pythium. And this is where it's already dead. It's gone. It's just, oh yeah, now I smell it. Oh yeah, it smells like gym socks and despair. Yeah, that's really bad. Okay, so that's what can happen. I just wanted to give you a glance into the dark side. And I half expect to see something swimming down there, like an old swimming pool, Oh, it's so gross. Okay, so enough of that. Oh my God, so bad. Okay. All right, so that's what root rot looks like. I've got my very own, lucky me. Okay, so what do you do? All right, so to prevent it, first of all, I told you don't use the green side. When you're cleaning the equipment, and by that I mean even just getting brand new equipment ready to use for the first time, that includes that. I will include that in the list. Is you want to wipe everything down with some of this stuff. So what I do is I got it. Let's say I have this garden here, and I'll just pull it over the side. You can sort of see it. I'll have everything pulled apart. Everything will be taken apart, laid out on the counter or whatever. And I'll take some of this and I'll drench the sponge, and I'll just go in and I'll just wipe the inside. Anywhere that water is going to touch, anywhere that, well, in this case, it's simply inside the tank, the chamber here. It never goes anywhere. It stays inside here. So that's really easy and straightforward. I just wipe everything down and that's done. And then I take, for everything else, for the baskets and for any little bits and pieces that are removable, I'll put them all in a bowl. Okay. And then I'll take maybe a half a cup of the hydrogen peroxide, even less than that. It doesn't take that much. Fill the bowl with water, put about a half a cup of hydrogen peroxide in that bowl, and then throw all your plastic bits and pieces in there and just let them sit for a couple minutes and swish them around a little bit. And that'll just get any kind of anything that might be on there that's not desirable. It'll get it off of there. And then when they're done, just take them out, scoop them out, lay them down on a towel, a kitchen towel, and let them dry on their own. You don't even have to mess with them. Just let them air dry. And when that's done, you can put it all back together and you'll know that it's completely safe and ready to go. So that's how I prep it. Now, when I'm cleaning it, when it's really grungy like this and really horror movie-esque like it is now, I will take a pair of scissors. I'll take it into the kitchen, first of all, by the sink, and I'll take a pair of scissors and I'll snip all the roots right beneath the basket. Snip, 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 and then lift the whole thing out, take it over to the sink, lower it into the sink, the whole tray full of baskets here, lower it into the sink, and then just pull it apart and throw the baskets into the bowl, throw the nasty stuff into a pile and into the compost heap. So, and then, I'll go through the process of soaking those plastic bits the same way I told you about, but I rinse them first. I'll rinse all the biggest chunks of rot. I feel like I'm on Walking Dead or something. I'll wash the biggest pieces of rot off of the the baskets and all the bits and pieces, and then I'll soak them in the hydrogen peroxide solution in the bowl for several minutes. Longer than that in the case where they've been used before. I'll soak them for maybe 20 minutes or so. And then I'll go ahead and rinse them off, put them on the towel, and let them dry. That's how I deal with that. And you do, so now, okay, one other thing I want to mention about this is that inside here, let me show you this actually on camera. Inside of here, there are so many places where, hold on a second. I'm going to switch this camera over here. Yeah. Okay. There are so many places where bad guys can hide. Like, for example, you have the pump mechanism here, the sprayer. Bad guys can hide on there. You have the place where the wire for the pump runs along that little trail there and up. All behind there, I've found roots love to grow behind those wires and trap themselves under there. You got to get that clean. That wire comes right out. It's made to come right out. It pops right out of those little plastic holders there. It loosens itself up, so you can just pop it out and wash it and rinse it. You can even just pour some hydrogen peroxide right on there. Sometimes I do it. If it's really nasty, I'll just pour it right on there, clean it really well, and then reassemble it, and you're good to go. I mean, yeah, look at this. It's like cleaning a 57 Chevy you just found out in a cornfield. Look at this. It's just terrible. My God, it's like Children of the Corn in here. So, yeah, you got to get all those little nooks and crannies clean. Also, okay, down here, now this one I took out just a little while ago because it was just awful. I should have kept it in there to show you, but there's a sponge normally right here that protects the pump, and I had, it was all encrusted. I took it out, but yeah, that has to be cleaned really well. And just sometimes you just have to get a new one because it's just so nasty you can't clean it. But the little sponge goes right there. That protects the pump from the roots, so the roots don't grow into the pump. But all of that can hold bacteria. So you really, what I also do, okay, this is important too. If there's ever been an infection like there is here, a root rot breakout in a tank like this, I'll actually, after I'm done cleaning everything, I'll fill this with some water just up to the top of the pump, and then I'll go ahead and pour another half a cup of hydrogen peroxide in that water and let it circulate with the pump. I'll turn the pump on and let it circulate through the pump and clean the pump for, good solid cycle of 15-minute running time. And that's how long it runs. When you first turn it on, it'll run for 15 minutes. And then 15 minutes every 45 minutes. That's the pattern. But you let it run, and then it'll circulate all that through there, and it'll get everything nice and clean. And also, in that 15 minutes, it'll have a chance to circulate that hydrogen peroxide water solution all throughout the tank, hitting all the areas that you might otherwise miss if you're trying to do it all manually. So that's another technique. You just fill the whole thing with hydrogen peroxide and water and just let it run for a little while, and that kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So that's how I clean those. Then, of course, on the outside here, it's the same deal. You can take your sponge, of course, and use the yellow side, clean anything that's plastic. That's fine. And even when you're maintaining it, you can clean with the same way, using a hydrogen peroxide wet on a sponge, including the top or anything at all really that gets touched, even including things that are just getting touched by your hands. Use that. You could totally safely use hydrogen peroxide in everything. It's a great material to use, a great product to use for this type of cleaning, for any type of cleaning, really. It has many uses. I sound like a salesman for hydrogen peroxide. Yeah, so good stuff. Highly recommended. I don't even care about the brand, just 3%. All right, so here's another thing you have to keep clean is if you are using a meter, a 5-in-1 meter, 3-in-1 meter, 5-in-1 meter, 6-in-1 meter, whatever, like this one, you have to make sure, because remember, this is getting dipped in everything in your nutrient solution, right? Your nutrient solution could be contaminated. Put that in there, then you go over to one of the clean gardens, dip it in there, all of a sudden you just spread the infection. Right? So you have to be careful if you're growing multiple, especially in a situation like mine behind me here where I have multiple things going on here, but only 1 meter. I'm only using 1 meter, but I have a dozen gardens going on, right? So if I had a bad case of root rot like this and I was just all like willy-nilly running around spreading infection, all of a sudden, even though they're not connected, I'd have infection everywhere because I would have spread it using the meter, right? So you have to clean your meter regularly and keep it as clean as you can in between uses. And that means dipping it in. I keep a little jar of distilled water with a lid on it, a mason jar full of distilled water. And as I'm walking around, I'll go and hydrogen peroxide. Sorry, it's a mixture of the water and hydrogen peroxide. And I'll just go and I'll clean it in between dippings in between the garden so they don't spread that infection around, right? And the other thing you can do, other than the water and hydrogen peroxide as you're keeping the meter clean between readings, is that every once in a while, let's say, well, for me, it would be maybe once a week, let's say once a month. It depends how often you use your meter, but you'll want to get some potassium chloride. Okay, it's 3-MkCl is how it's spelled. Let me see if I can get this on. If you could see that on camera. 3-MkCl. Now this is a mock-up. This is not actually, I don't make this or sell this yet. I'm working on finding a distributor for this. Oh God, sorry about my nails. I'm so gross right now. I've been cleaning today. I'm doing a show about keeping everything clean, and I've got like these nasty nails. There's such irony in that. But you just want to get the 3-MkCl is what it is there, and it comes in these 8-ounce bottles and so forth. But what this is it's a storage and cleaning solution that's made specifically for these very delicate meters, right? So, and follow the directions on your bottle. They're different depending on what you get, depending on how concentrated it is. This is a ready-to-use solution. So this would simply, I would take some of this, I do it right now, and just pour it into the container. Just enough that, it'll cover the probe. Put that back. And then I would let the meter sit in that potassium chloride for, usually about an hour. I usually recommend at least about an hour. I mean, you can go longer than that, but I wouldn't go longer than maybe 2 hours. Definitely not. So keep it in that because this is the straight solution. There, you can dilute it as a storage solution. Actually, I'm sorry. This actually is already pre-diluted. This is pre-approved for storage as well as cleaning, so you can keep it in longer. But I typically leave it in for about an hour to maximum 2 hours, and that will get rid of the grunge that often will collect, and you'll see it's kind of brown and nasty on there after a while. And that potassium chloride will help to keep that nice and clean. And most importantly, on the pH probe, the glass probe, which needs to be transparent, needs to be nice and clean and see-through because that's how it functions. And potassium chloride will help that to stay nice and clear for you. So that's how that works. And I'm going to take another drink here. Got to keep my insides clean too. So I actually am going to give you a recommendation here. When you buy this potassium chloride or other products that are some of them tend to be a little bit pricey. Like, for example, I'm thinking of the calibration solution, the 1413 calibration solution that you buy when you want to calibrate the EC function on a meter. Tends to be a little expensive. So I tell people, get a bottle of the good stuff, right? Whatever you can afford, and then get a clean jar, a small glass clean jar. Glass is the preferred material for it. It can't be anything that's going to absorb chemicals or materials. Glass is perfect. Nice clean glass jar. Pour some of this into it, like half of the jar, half of the jar's worth. In this case, it's 8 ounces. Pour 4 ounces into a clean glass jar. Then use that for, 8 or 10 or 12 dipping cleanings, whatever you want to call them. And then throw it out and pour the other half of the bottle in. That way, you're not recontaminating your original bottle every time. You're just contaminating half of your stash, and then when that's spent, you still have half a stash you can use. So that kind of helps you to extend it, because the fact of the matter is you don't need more than that to get the job done, because all you need to do is cover the probe on the end of the meter, which is just that end piece right there, right? So you can see that's more than enough to get the job done, more than enough. So that will extend your usage of that product. Now, it can't just be stored in this because it'll evaporate. That's no good. So it has to be a jar with a lid on it. I just did this for the camera. But jar with a lid, do that, extend it. And like I said, that's also great for the 1413 solution. And by the way, after you've dipped it in here, it's totally fine. Just go ahead, because it's a storage solution also, go ahead and just pop the cap back on, and there it is. And that'll store just fine, just like that. Excuse me. Ooh, lots of dust down here. So, yeah, that's how you deal with cleaning that. So let me show you also something really kind of cool. Ultraviolet light. The big showstopper here. This is the one you've all come for. Ultraviolet light is just about the best thing ever for killing all the bad guys, and I mean quick and effectively. Now, here's the deal, though. The effective range of this is very shallow. So, well, it depends on time. Okay. All right. Let me restate this again. This is a UVC bulb. This is a germicidal bulb. This wavelength of, which I should not be looking at, by the way, this wavelength of light is designed to kill bacteria and pathogens, germs. Designed to kill the bad guys. You'll find them in commercial kitchens. They hang them up on the ceiling, and at nighttime when everybody goes home, those turn on, and they, over the course of a night, will kill all the germs on all of the surfaces that this light hits, okay, that the light lands on. All right. So over the course of a night, obviously, you've got hours and hours of this light, these photons hitting the touchable surfaces. It's going to do a pretty good job. So when you want to kill germs quickly, you have to hold the light close to the place where the germs are that you want to kill. So if I wanted to sanitize my hand, I'd be doing this, right? Or no, it doesn't have to be that close, but it has to be fairly close so that these photons are the strongest ones hitting the surface, because right now it's getting drowned out by, I have these very powerful studio video lights on either side of me. I have lights behind me, under me, over me. I got lights everywhere, and those lights are competing with this light. So this light can't do the job if it's getting interference patterns from all these other lights. So it has to be very close to the surface to be effective. If it were dark in here and I had no other lights on, this light would be much more effective on this surface. I could hold my hand farther away and it would still get the job done because it's no interference from the other lights, right? So just remember that if you want to use this for sanitation, the way I would recommend using this is you could take this, for example, here's where it's effective. Take it and it's waterproof, put it inside of your bucket, your nutrient bucket. Just drill a hole and stick it in the bucket and have it on a timer, an intermittent timer, right? And so one of these timers with do I have one here? I think I've got one right here. Timer, just had one like 10 minutes ago. Where the hell is it? Anyway, one of those little timers with all the little things on it, the intermittent timers we all use for everything, like the manual style, right? Well, not anymore. I don't use them anymore, but I used to use a lot of these things. And you program it. So they're like every 15 minutes it turns on for 10 minutes or something, whatever, 15 minutes. And you would simply put this on one of those timers and have it turn on for 15 minutes every 45 minutes, just like the gardens, actually. Turn on and circulate water 15 minutes every 45 minutes. You could have this on a very similar cycle, and it would do an extremely good job at sterilizing the inside of that either nutrient chamber, the inside of a 5-gallon bucket filled with nutrient solution, or inside of a grow chamber for your root zone. Okay. So I actually made, a while back, I made these things called, let's switch over here. These are called, whoops, wrong one. These are called the Root Defender, I call this thing. And it's just a mini version of this big lamp here. It's a little tiny version of it. And this end is a little circuit board. It's a little circuit board inside here that makes the thing light up. And it lights up kind of bluish, just like the other one. And you plug it into a 12-volt power source here. Actually, I usually have one here. I seem to not be having anything I need tonight. But anyway, plug it in, it lights up. And this is also can be run on a timer. I actually did always run these on a timer. And these are pretty clever. So you drill, what I did with this was I would just drill a hole in the top of the 5-gallon bucket and just pop this in the top of the bucket, and it would just sit there. And it would turn on for a few minutes, every 15 or 20 minutes. I had different cycles I tried out with digital timers. But it did a really good job. The problem I had was with I'm having a little issue with the waterproofing around the tube right there. But other than that, it works very well. But the really strong one is this big one. You can get 15 watts of UVC. And I'm about to offer these actually for sale on our website. But you can get these other places too. I'm sure you can find them elsewhere. But yeah, these are great. These work very, very well. Let's see here. So that, like I said, that's kind of a bluish light UVC. Also, if you want to like sterilize keyboards and stuff like that, you can totally do that too. Like right now, like this is just totally sterile. That's done. That's good. Sterilize the keyboard right then and there. It's good to go. My microphone, my keyboard, my surfaces, all this kind of stuff, my mouse, all that kind of stuff. It's all good. And the surfaces where you're working with your equipment, you can hang it up above there. You can sterilize the equipment overnight, just like the restaurants do with all those meat juices and stuff. It'll neutralize everything. Kill germs on any touchable surface. More water. So that's how I do that. This is like my lightsaber for the world of indoor growing. So that is how we keep stuff clean. Now, one thing I want to tell you is I did mention in the very beginning, don't use anything like chlorine, please, or God forbid anything stronger than that. There are a few that are worse than that, but bleach is very, very, very powerful and very misused. It's very easy to go too far with chlorine bleach. And plants, they're very sensitive, and chlorine is an absolute no-no around plants. You just can't do it. Don't do it. But again, hydrogen peroxide, boom, good to go. And potassium chloride. I will put links to the potassium chloride in the description below, and you can pick up some of this on the Jungle website. And I will also put a link to this here. I'm going to be fair. I know I'm going to be selling these soon, but it doesn't matter. I want you guys to have these now. So I'll put a link to where I got this one. Can I do that? Wait, where was it? I'll figure it out. I'll put a link to it, and I think I can. I'll find you one. Don't worry about it. I might have gotten this from one of my inside suppliers, but I don't remember. But I'll find you a source for this, and I'll put a link to it. And let me see. What else can I tell you about cleaning? I think that's it. What else am I thinking here? Wait, there was something else I wanted to tell you about. I got the Pythium root rot. We got the UV. We got the hydrogen peroxide, the meters, potassium chloride. Boom, saving money on that in the jar. Yeah, okay, the sponge, green side, yellow side, all that. Yep, I think that's it. All right, good. All right, we're done. That was easy, painless. Don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like button. Help me out so that you and others can see the similar content, which hopefully will help you to grow better indoors. And we have a lot more of this type of content coming. So do hit the subscribe and the notification button. Don't forget that. Hit the bell, ding ding, and you will be told when there's new video out that'll help you be even more successful with your indoor growing. So until next time, this coming couple of weeks, until I see you next time, I want you to go grow something. Leave me some comments down here. Tell me what you want to hear about, what you want to talk about, and tell me how you keep your garden clean. If it's not this way, how do you do it? Tell me and I'll tell the others. That's how it works. All right. Have a great couple of weeks and keep your thumbs green and your nose clean. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.